I'm Cassandra and I am with Pecan Porch Boutique. And tonight I thought that I would bring you guys along as I work on this little bench here that I grabbed last weekend, I think, from a garage sale. And so my goal with this piece is to kind of give it a little bit of an aged look. It's not an old piece, but I kind of want to give it a grungy looking, kind of an aged look. So I thought I'd take you guys along with me while I work on that tonight. So some of the products that I'm going to be using are my DIY paints, my Paint Pixie brush, and my Mr. spray bottle in phase 1. So that's just going to be for us to get the paint on. I'm going to use those products. And then for phase 2, I think I'm going to work on putting on some decoupage paper, which I love, and we'll talk more about that as we move along, and some sealer. So that I can show y'all that I've kind of already started working on the legs of this piece. And the legs to me are always the kind of the tedious part of doing anything that has legs. And to do the legs, I typically flip it upside down so that I can get every piece of the leg done. So that's what I did to this piece. I flipped it upside down and I got the legs done. So I'm just going to lift it up a little bit so you guys can see that I've already done the legs. And so I want to get this look that I did on the legs on top of here. And it's going to look a little chaotic at first, but I'm going to try to pull it all together and see if we come up with the aged look that I have in my mind. So okay, so we're going to start. Again, I use DIY paints. And the reason why I use them is because, and I've tried a lot of chalk paints and they're all good. I settled on DIY because I think it matches better with kind of the way that I like to paint, which is more of kind of a reckless, for lack of a better word, kind of a grungy type paint style. Not really the modern clean line style, even though I love it. And DIY paint works perfect for that as well. But it works really good for me with the style of painting that I do. So I chose DIY paint, and so that's the paint that I use on all my projects. So today I'm going to be using Sandy Blonde, and we're just going to I'm just going to put a little bit on the plate here. And also we're going to use a little bit of beadboard, which is a really pretty kind of white color. Put some of that here. And then I'm going to use black velvet, and actually black velvet is going to be my my main color. It's going to be my base color. So when I say base color, it's going to be the color that I'm going to put on first. And I don't know if you noticed, but as I was pouring out the paints, but if you can see, they were kind of thick. So that's where my Mr. Spray Bottle comes in. And yeah, you know, she's a little fat. She's, but you know, it's quarantine. I don't know about y'all, but I'm a little fat too from that. So she holds a lot of water here, and she's a mister. So I'm just gonna take and I'm gonna mist the paint that I just put in this plate here, and that just kind of you know, kind of thins it up a little bit so that it'll move around on my plate better and on my piece. So I'm going to start off with my darkest color first, and again that is going to be my black velvet in DIY. So I'm going to start with that first, and I'm just going to kind of start to rub it on. And one thing you're going to notice is I'm not really doing full coverage here. So you can see that I am putting it on, but I'm really not going for a full coverage. And you know, you'll be able to, as we go along, I'll explain to you why. Now that this base color is dry, we're going to go ahead and add on in our other two colors. And but one of the reasons why we wanted the base color to dry before we put on the other two colors is because chalk style paints reactivate when they're wet with water. So if we had let this stay wet and then we added another paint to it, which is also a wet paint, then it would blend in with this. And there are times that you want to do blending, but this isn't a time that we want to do blending. We want to add the colors. So that's why we let this dry. So we still have our other two colors here. So we're going to go ahead and kind of start to drag on our sandy blonde. And so as you can see, I'm just kind of putting on the same way that I put on the base color. But one of the reasons why I kind of left some of the pockets of wood here is just so that I can kind of fill it in with some of these these other colors that I'm using here. So that's why we didn't go for a complete coverage. That's why we're not going for a complete coverage here. Because again, remember, the goal is to kind of make this look aged and old. So we are back to finish up on this bench. And so the colors that we put on here are dry now. So we can kind of move on to our next step. So what I've done for the next step, and again, remember that this piece is supposed to look old. I kind of envision a bench that's been sitting out in the barn for a while and tucked over in the corner, you know, where every once in a while when Granddad comes out and works on a project, paint gets splattered on it, or you know, it's just kind of peeling. And so that's my vision for this piece. So anyway, the base coat we laid down. We added some of the other colors here, and so now what we're going to do is we're going to give it a little bit of splatter. So to do that, I'm going to use my moppy, and on this plate here I have some other colors that I like. I have weathered wood here, this brown here, that's weathered wood. Then I have some Old 57 and some Monet's Garden. And so basically what I'm going to do here to get our splatters, I'm going to take my Mr. sprayer. I'm just going to damp my moppy here. And I am going to just take it and just kind of dip it kind of around and get it in all three of those colors. Can you see that? So nothing, it's all random. Now we're going to do the top. And again, I'm just going to give my moppy a little bit of mist, just so that my paint will be a little bit moist. So here we go for the top. So again, I'm just going to dab this around. You can see nothing scripted here, just random. If I want a little bit more of the Old 57, I just kind of dab over this way a little bit more. Maybe I want some more of the Monet's Garden, and I kind of go that way a little bit more. And so then I'm just gonna kind of splatter in no particular order. Okay, so we've got the splatter on with the moppy here, and I just kind of went and rinsed it off with just some dishwashing detergent and some water. It rinses off pretty good, and I kind of stick it upside down in there in my little caddy in there, and it'll dry out pretty quick. Okay, so we got the splatter on, and so and I've kind of already did the legs. I don't know if you guys can see the legs, but you can see I've toned them down from what they were. So we're going to do the same thing to the top. And so what I'm going to do is we're going to go back in with our little black dress, which if you remember, it was the base coat. So I'm just going to dip my brush in, and I'm not getting very much paint on the brush at all. Really tiny bit of paint. It's almost a dry brush, but with a dry brush you use a little even less paint than this. But I'm not going to add any water because, again, I don't want it to reactivate. I just want it to I'm just going to kind of do a little dry brush technique. So here we go. And really what this is going to do, and I'm dipping into my my paint jar. Typically I would pour this out into a little cup, but since I'm only using one color, I'm just dipping into my paint jar. And what this is going to do is it's going to let me cover up some of the splatter, but because I'm not going for full coverage, we're going to also see some of those colors that we have underneath here. Okay guys, we are almost to the finish on this little bench here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do a couple more steps, and then I think from there we should be pretty much finished. So or getting close to finish. So I have some things over here. The first thing we have here is I have a piece of 220 grit sandpaper. I have my little Frenchy pixie brush here. I have a brush that I use to kind of dust, and I'll show you what that's for later. I have some polyacrylic, which is in the matte finish. This is the Minwax polyacrylic. I have some water. I have another little empty cup, a little small brush here, some scissors, a piece of decoupage paper, as you might can see back here on this piece that I have back here, and a piece of cardboard. Okay, so we'll move through those things, and you'll kind of see what each one of them is for. Okay, so let's move some of these down. Kind of get them out of the way. Hopefully I don't spill this water, so I'm going to stick it under here. Scissors, and we'll put this over there. So the first thing I want to do on this piece, again, remember we're going for an aged, old look. And as you can see, we've kind of already transformed from that brown looking bench that we had in the beginning. This has kind of been transformed. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to give it a little bit more age. I'm going to take this piece of 220 grit sandpaper, and I'm just going to kind of scuff up the edges, kind of around where you might see normal wear and tear. And I kind of already did it with the legs. Not sure if you can see around the corners here. So I've already done those. And so we're just going to take the 220 grit sandpaper and just kind of scuff in different places, random, where you might normally kind of see wear. And we're just kind of bringing back some of that brown that was underneath here. So I'm just gonna go along and random, because wear doesn't, you know, when something ages and wears, you know, it just does it in random spots. So that's what I'm doing here. We're just gonna randomly scuff off in different places. And I'm kind of paying kind of particular attention to these curves here on the corner, because I kind of feel like those are the spots that would probably get a lot of wear over the years. And when you're distressing, you can distress as much or as little as you want to. There's no, I mean, it's kind of up to you. There's no particular amount or where even. You know, that's kind of up to you. So. And I personally like distressing furniture. There are other people who really don't, you know, they don't care for distressed pieces, but it kind of goes along with my my painting style. So now I'm just going to take this brush that you saw me with, and I'm just going to kind of wipe off the excess. And I'm not going to do it really hard because, as you can see, I'm painting on the floor of my dining room, so I don't have on a mask or anything, so I don't want it flying everywhere. So I'm just going to kind of slowly go around and dust off that excess paint. From where we distressed. Okay, so I'm going to take this little, I had this little damp tile here. So I'm going to just take this little damp tile and just kind of go around and get any excess. Now, if this were a bigger piece of furniture, you would definitely want to make sure that you, because you see how much of that came off, you definitely want to make sure that you get all of the excess paint from your distressing off. Okay, but we didn't distress a lot, so I think that just using this damp cloth will be fine. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so now our next step, and I'm sweating, but I sweat all the time, so our next step is going to be to get a clear coat on here, a sealer. And what the sealer does is, and again, I like to use the polyacrylic, even though I do retail the DIY Big Top. I typically use polyacrylic on my furniture pieces because I like the matte finish. I'm not one for shiny finishes, and the Big Top is a little bit more shiny, so I tend to use that for smaller pieces that maybe tend to be a little bit more modern. But today I'm going to use the polyacrylic, and I put it in my FIFO bottle with the green tip, and it just kind of helps me to contain it and be able to get it out easily. As you can see how easily I poured it out. And another thing I'm using are these little cups. They come in really handy. I get these from the Dollar Tree. I think you get like 12 for $1, and they're disposable. So, and then I'm using this little brush here. And I believe this is a Wise Owl brush, but I'm not sure what kind. I don't retail this particular brush, but I had one, and so because this piece is small, it'll kind of help me. I mean, it'll just be easier to use to get this sealer on here. So we're just going to dip in, and and start brushing it on. I really like this part of the process for two reasons, because first of all, it kind of lets me know I'm almost finished. And then the sealer, what it does, any kind of sealer, whether it be this clear liquid sealer or wax, what the sealer does is it seals in the paint, but it also brings back the deep, rich colors of the paint. And so, I don't know if you can see it, but if you can see the colors coming back. As a matter of fact, I think you can. You can see the difference between what I put on here and this here that I haven't put on anything. And so I like to see that. I love to see the colors come back in. Okay, so I had to move the camera up a little so that I could kind of be upright more, because getting up and down ain't as quite easy as it used to be when I was younger. So, the next thing I'm going to do is I want to add one of these decoupage papers, as you can see. This one is called, they're by Roy Cycle Treasures, and this one is called Grunge Numbers, and it is one of my favorites. I don't know if you can see the piece over here in the corner, but I did that one with this. And so I want to kind of add this to the top of the bench. Now, when you're decoupaging, there are several ways that you can adhere the paper to whatever it is that you're going to put it on. There's the iron-on method, so you can iron it on. Then there is the method that we're going to use tonight, which is to use a decoupage medium. And I am going to use the same polyacrylic that I used to seal the piece with. I'm going to use that to adhere my decoupage to the piece as well. And again, I used it in these FIFO bottles. These things are great. And you can also use them for your paint as well. I do that. I keep my paint in them too. So what I'm going to do first though, to make the piece a little bit more, a little easier to work with, because it's so long. These pieces come in 20 by 30 sheets, and they are 18 pound. They're pretty, you know, sturdy papers, but they're not very thick. So, but because it's so long, what I'm going to do is there's a natural fold line that comes in them. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just cut along this line, and I'm going to cut it into 2 pieces, just to make it a little bit easier to work with. And I don't really need to try to get it a straight line, and I'll show you why in just a minute. I'm just going to cut it on that fold. And one of the things I've learned, that if you, you know, let's just say you're putting it on and you're not cutting it into halves, and you want to kind of get rid of that fold, I'll just take a little damp water and kind of run it down that fold, and then that kind of loosens it up, so that you don't have that fold. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use this board here just so I can, so I don't get too much water on the bench right now. But I'm going to take my little paint pixie brush that you saw earlier. This is my little Frenchie. And all of these products can be found, you guys, on my website at pecanporchboutique.com. So I'm going to take my little Frenchie. I'm just going to dip it in the water, not too much. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace along the edge of this paper, so that I can get kind of a tattered look on it. So I don't want it to be too straight, because again, remember, with this bench we're going for an older look. So I'm going to take the little water that I dabbed on here, and I'm just going to trace along the edge of the paper. With the water. It's just plain water. And then what I'm going to do along that edge that I traced with the water, it makes it translucent. And so now I'm just going to take with my hands, can you guys see what I'm doing here? I'm just tracing along the water line and just peeling that paper away so that I get this tattered look and not so much a finished look. So this is the piece that I tore off. That's just where that's the trace line that I had on my paper. And so now the edge looks like this instead of a straight edge. Okay, so and that's the look I'm going for. So I'm just going to do that again, and I'm going to do it around the entire piece. Just dip this, and I use this little Frenchy, but you could use any brush. But I use this little Frenchy because it's pointed on the end, and to me it works well. So I just dipped it in the water, and again I'm going to do a trace line along the other edge of the paper. May have to dip it in the water again. Well, if I can keep my brush from rolling off. There we go. And then I'm just going to take and I'm going to tear along that wet line that I made. And it looks like right here I might need a little bit more water. When it starts to get hard to tear, just add a little bit more water. Maybe you didn't add enough. And then start to pull again along that tear line. So one of the things I want to do before I continue, because I want these tear lines to fit inside my, right along the edge of my, the end, the sides that are going to be on the end, I want them to fit right along the edge of my bench here. So I'm going to make sure I get them kind of where I want them. So I don't want them to overlap. I just want them to kind of, the tattered edges just to come right inside the this inner part of the bench. Okay, so kind of looks like, so I'm just looking at it to see where I want to put my next wet line to peel away. So I'm kind of just eyeballing it. And so I'm going to go back with my paper. Can you guys see this? Am I too far up? Can you see that? Okay. So I'm going to go back with my paper. Now that I've kind of eyeballed it. And I'm going to do another wet line. And whatever direction you go with your wet line, if you want to go up in some spots and then down again, it kind of gives it more of a random tattered look. And then you just pull along that wet line. So I'm just going to tear it along the wet line here that I made. And there we go. This is the piece that I tore off. And so this is kind of what it looks like now along this edge. So I'm going to lay it down again here on my bench just to make sure that I kind of have it where I want it. And I think that's going to be okay. It does overlap a little bit along the edges in some points, but that's okay. That gives me more randomness. So I have one more edge to do on this side. So I dip in my water again. And I hope you guys can see this. I'm just going along the edge with the water. then I'm just going to take with my fingers here, and I'm just going to peel away the wet spots that I made with the water. And looks like I didn't get it wet enough up here, so it doesn't want to peel. So there we go. So I'm just going to peel away the line that I made with the water, following it as it makes these random jagged, torn edges. Okay, so now instead of just a regular square paper, I have a paper now that has these jagged edges on the sides, and that's what I'm going to use when I lay it down here. So I just kind of want to make sure, I'm going to grab this other sheet here, just kind of want to make sure where I want to line it up at. I think I'm going to put it right here. This is where I'm going to start decoupaging it on, is right here. And again, I don't want it to, I definitely want it to be random and, you know, old looking, so I'm not looking for anything that's really measured or equal on each side. So we're going to start right here. And so what I'm going to do to start laying down the decoupage is I'm just going to start on this end here. And again, I'm using the same, in this little cup, it's the same polyacrylic that I used to seal the whole bench with. And I'm just going to take this polyacrylic here. I think I probably better put this cup on this side. I'm going to take the polyacrylic. I'm going to start on this end here. I'm just going to lay it down some. And one of the things you want to make sure when you're decoupaging is to make sure you lay down enough product to hold your paper down, whatever that is. Now again, this is tissue, this is decoupage paper, and so if you were, you know, putting down something, decoupaging something down more than the weight of this paper, then you may want to use a different type of you know, something like Mod Podge or something thicker. You may want to use a different decoupage medium. But this this varnish works well for the decoupage papers that I use. And so you can see I laid it down. I laid down my varnish. Started on the end down there, laid down my varnish, and then I pressed my decoupage paper back up over it. And you are going to get some wrinkles with this, you know, with this method of using the medium. But that's okay for me for this project because, you know, again, I want it to look old. So what I'm going to do now is I've already decoupaged down that end. So I'm just going to flip my paper back here. Can you guys see this? Hopefully you can. I'm going to flip the paper back and I'm going to lay down some more medium. And I'm doing it just a little at a time. So I'm not doing, you know, so I wouldn't put the medium all the way down here and then lay my whole paper down. So I'm just kind of laying the paper down in sections. Trying to be careful that I get enough medium on there. And get it all over in every spot so that I don't have any places where I didn't get the medium at. So then I'm just going to peel my paper back now, and I'm just going to press it down firm with my hand. Use the flat of my hand to kind of brush it down like that. Okay, now I just have one little piece here on the end that needs something. brush this on here. Then I'm going to take what's left after I brush on the majority of it. I'm going to put it right under the edge of this fold. And then I'm going to take my hand here and just smooth it down. Okay, and there you go. Now, if you did not want, you know, these edges to hang over like they're doing here, you could take just a little sanding block and scuff these off and stop it right flush with the top of the bench. But it's okay for me for those to be hanging down. So I'm just going to take a little of my medium here. I'm going to raise up these edges. Just kind of put some medium underneath them. And then lay them down. Go over and catch a few of these right here. Put some medium under here. And go ahead and lay those down. Okay, and then I'm going to do the other side just like I did this one. There's just a little edge over here. Just going to lift it up and tuck a little bit of this medium underneath there. And then lay it back down. Okay, so now we've got that on. We've got the first part of the decoupage paper on. And I don't know, did I tell you guys the name of this? This one is Grungy Numbers. One of my favorites. So now we're going to take the medium, and what we're going to do is we're going to run it back over the top. And again, not only does it seal it down from the top, but it also pulls in all the color of the background underneath there, and that is one of the reasons why I wanted to use some of the colors that we use, the sandy blonde color, the black velvet, and you guys, I think I've been saying little black dress, but what we used was for the base, this dark black color was black velvet. So the black velvet, some of the beadboard, and the reason why I chose those colors were because they kind of fit with the colors that are in the decoupage paper. The first thing I'm going to do is I am going to go back and I'm going to take this little piece of 220 grit sandpaper that we use to kind of scuff up the edges a little bit, and I'm going to take it and I'm going to run it back over my decoupage paper. And this has been sitting overnight, so it is you know, it's well adhered now. So I can take this decoupage, I can take this sandpaper, and now I'm just going to kind of rub it back over the decoupage paper. And what I do is I kind of pay particular attention to the wrinkles that are in here. And what it does is it kind of gives it a little kind of more of a crackly look as I move the sandpaper across the wrinkles. And so that's kind of why I don't mind having the wrinkles. Because as I run my sandpaper across the wrinkles that might be still there, it not only kind of helps to flatten them down more, but it gives it a little bit more of a aged look. And so, you know, it just kind of adds to the look that I was going for. So, I'm just going to take my brush, take off some of the dust from the sandpaper. There's not much. But again, I'm doing this in my dining room, so I'm trying not to, and I don't have a mask on, so I'm trying not to have it flying everywhere. And I think that should be good. So, and one of the last things that I like to do once I've gone over it with the sandpaper is to once again, you know, because I kind of took off some of the polyacrylic when I used the sandpaper on it, what I'm going to do is I am going to go back with some of my polyacrylic, and I'm going to add it back to the top. Because, you know, when I was using the sandpaper, it did take some of that off, of course, as I was rubbing it on, as I was rubbing it around. So, so I'm just going to take the polyacrylic again. And again, it never hurts to go back and put more polyacrylic. So this is like a third layer of protection that you're putting on the bench. So let's just say you have this sitting in your, you know, your mud room where your kids come in and out and they throw things on it, or maybe they're sitting on it on the way out to catch the bus and, you know, they spill something on it. This polyacrylic will just help protect it from stains and wear for a while. And there we go. So, added another layer of polyacrylic back over the paper that I took the sandpaper and went over. So that is pretty much it, you guys. One of the things I want to say that I did do off camera after we adhered the paper down was I took some of the little scraps that I peeled as I was you know, going around the edges of the paper. I took a couple of those little scraps that were left and I kind of put them down here on the end and on this end, so kind of closing, you know, making the decoupage paper go out a little bit longer. I kind of felt like it was too much left on the ends that didn't have decoupage, so I just added a few scraps here and there. And with this decoupage paper, I would always recommend that you keep your scraps, because you can use those here and there to make collages or add to other things that you're working on. So that way you don't waste the paper, even though you know, you maybe cut around edges or something like that. So that's it, you guys, and I think it turned out really well. Kind of came a long way from just the plain little brown bench that we started out with.